Hi everyone, today I'm going to introduce you to NumPy. NumPy is a specific library in Python. This is an example of what libraries are and what libraries can do. Thing about libraries is that they take the basic elements of Python and then they extend it with various operations so that it makes your life simpler and easier to do. So, workshop, session 2, new one, 3, NumPy. So in Python, you can import packages using the import function. So you could import NumPy as this. And when you're using this module, this library, you you can just say NumPy dot say array. So this is how you create one. And what you have to do is take a list 1 comma 2 comma 3 and NumPy dot array of list is array. And this is how you get your array. This is the way you make a NumPy array. This is one of the ways. There's several different ways. This is one of them. Um, but let me just show you a quicker, faster shortcut, and it's also useful to see that this is how Python works. So I can import NumPy as np, and then I do np.array of the list. So this becomes faster. Another thing you can do is just say np.array of 1 comma 2 comma 3 and call this as array 1. So you get, so this is your array 1, right? Now in Python, arrays, and this is similar to MATLAB if you've ever worked with MATLAB or maybe even R. Um, Py- Python arrays are made to behave like numbers and matrices. So if I have array 1, I can just add 1 to it and get 2 comma 3 comma 4. I can multiply, oops, array 1 into 2. I can get 2 comma 4 comma 6. So basically you can do these algebraic manipulations. You can divide it, you can subtract it. All of those are legal operations. Now if you remember list, in the previous exercise we had defined a list 1 and we had defined two lists, and when we tried adding them up together they concatenated, because the list's main idea is that it's just something that contains numbers. That's not how it is with array. So what I do now is convert both of these to arrays and say this is np.array of L1, np.array of L2, and here is my array1 plus array2. So people often ask you what's the difference between arrays and lists. Arrays are made to behave like matrices, lists are made to behave like just a sequence. So your intuition could be geared in that sense. Um, you can say take the sum of um, an array, you can take the mean, you can take a lot of inbuilt functions are there with these things. Let me, right, so it's got its own inbuilt functions. Another thing that's important for you to know is indexing. So if this is my array and I want to see only the first element, I would enter 0 because indexing starts with 0. So that would be 1. Our first element is array 1's first element is 1. So good. If I do array 1 of 2, it will be the third element, which is 3. Exactly what we expected, exactly what we want. The way you can iterate through all the elements of a NumPy array, if you want to see each of these individually, is just say for I in, this is similar to a list, for I in array, print I or something, and then you can just get it out. Right, so This is basically what 1D arrays are all about. You can add them, multiply them together, you can uh, subtract, you can add them with numbers, you can multiply them with numbers, you can divide them by numbers, and it all works smoothly and it all works as expected. Whenever you're confused, you can just try something and see if that works. Now, moving on to two-dimensional arrays. So this is my array 2D, defining it to be 1, comma 1, 2, comma 1, 3, comma 2. Don't forget to put the commas in between each of these elements and then put it all in a NumPy array constructor. There you go. Other quick ways of creating arrays is this is how you create a random array of say 3 comma 2, random numbers between 0 and 1. You can create a 0 array of any shape similarly. So np.0 of size 1 comma 2 zeros. It's not, so I'm just reading this error and I'm saying, oh, they don't have something called size, they have something called shape. So let me just rechange that to shape. And that's how I get my 0 array. There you go. 1 comma 2, there's 1 row and 2 columns. Right? So straightforward and simple. This is how arrays are initialized. Now let me take a larger array and show you how to subset two-dimensional arrays. So this is my array. Let me make another random array of size, 5 comma 5. And take a look at my random array. This huge thing. So 5 rows and 5 columns, right? And then I take, say, I want only the first 2 rows and the first 2 columns. Sorry, these are not a list within a list. This is just the first 2 rows and the first 2 columns. Before that, let me just tell you how to take one element. Like let's say I'm interested in only this element. I would say 1 comma 1. So that will give me only this element. But if I'm interested in like some subset of this entire thing, if I'm interested in this region, then I would say rand array of up to the second index, up to the second index. So I'm saying the first index goes from 0 to 2, and then the second index also goes from 0 to 2. And that's how you have it. So the second index is not included. We wanted only the first 4. So that's why I mentioned it like this. This is not too straightforward to see in this right now, but we can see it. So the sum would be the sum of all of these numbers, right? Now, it's important to note also that all of the operations that I showed you and over here sort of also apply to these larger arrays. Like I can take my random array and I can multiply it by 10 and you get this thing times 10. So let's check a few elements. This is 6.47. Over here would be 0.647. You can add 2 of them together. You can multiply 2 of them together. And it works pretty intuitively once you get the hang of it. And it's pretty straightforward. So that's that. Now, if you want to index through all the elements in a two-dimensional array, you can do for I in rand array. This would give you all the rows. So this would be say for all the rows in rand array. For the column in the row, print column, right? So this would be every element would be a column in some sense, or I think it's better and more intuitive for me to say for I in row. So it will first print 2.3 and then 8.977, 0.69, blah, 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 and so on. Be careful that this is the array that is being returned by multiplied by 10. Just take a look at our random array once again. So you get 0.23, 8977, and so on. Right? So I hope that this basic introduction to NumPy helps you play around with NumPy arrays, create NumPy arrays, and so on. I've also added a cheat sheet to the which I'll give to you. But this cheat sheet will help you figure out certain things when you're looking for them. For example, this is how you can start off a certain array, right? So zeros would give you zeros of the shape, ones will give you ones of the shape, arrange, linspace, random, not random. This is to read and write an array. I don't use this too much, but you can do it. You can figure it out. You can subtract also with this internal function. Sometimes there's a difference in the way these are encoded. So np.subtract is probably faster than this, at least in the earlier versions. Now it should be about the same. You can add them like this. So it's pretty intuitive, pretty straightforward. Aggregation functions will give you sum, min, max, cumulative sum. You don't need to remember each of these things. You just have to look at the cheat sheet when you're trying to figure these things out. Um, This is subsetting and slicing. I've already showed you this. The colon means from 0 to 2, as we had seen in the list. This is some subset and some other subset. So we've gone through the basic elements in your cheat sheet. I hope that this helps you. And that's it for NumPy. All right, so that was a very, very quick introduction to NumPy. There is another thing, another couple of things that I want to talk about and show you before you guys work out the exercises. And for that, I'll share my screen once again. I need permission. Right, so I'm changing to my desktop, and where's my Chrome? My number. Let me just create a new quick notebook. And this is to carry on with the with functions. So last time we had defined a function. We defined something called to the power of n plus 1, and we had said n. Let me just give something more intuitive, right? So this does sum plus 1. So I'm going to take in two numbers and return a plus b plus 1. This is just a function. So I do sum plus 1 of 1 comma 2, and you get 2 plus 1 is 3 plus 1 is 4. But what I can do in Python, and it's pretty useful that you can do this, you can actually give default values. So when I define another function like this, right? And I say A is equal to 1, B is equal to 1, and then I call sum plus 1. I actually needn't specify the value of A and B. It automatically takes it to be 1 for both of them. So A is also 1 and B is also 1, so it returns 3. What I can do is I can change the value of A. I'll get 4, right? Sum plus 1, I can change the value of only B, right? So similar to this, you'd again get 4. So basically, in most programming languages, you can't play around with these default values. But having these default values is very important. So um, I don't know if you noticed this, but in this quick video that we had, I had mentioned this, for example, right? Shape is equal to 1 comma 2. So I this this has other inputs that I could give it. But so the basic data type, the assumption was that it's a float and the order is C. So these are other things that I'm not necessarily playing around with it right now when I'm calling it. I'm just using the default values. The ones that I'm specifying is only the shape. If I look at this help file a little more, the shape actually tells you the shape of the new array, and the data type is the D type is the desired data type of the array. So it could be numpy int 8 or numpy float 64. So these are different data types. You needn't know each of these things. You just need to know what is useful to you. Like over here, we only needed to know what the shape was. Over here, for example, we are not interested in this entire thing. If it's giving you what you expect, what you want, then that's fine. But basically, what something like this means is that um, whether you mention columns first or rows first, which comes first, and the default is C. So I can play around with it, and this I'm doing in real time also, so that you understand that you're not expected to remember each of these things, right? So now if I write my zero array, okay, so this doesn't change too much, but maybe I should make it a little more larger. This is 2 comma 3, maybe this is still 2 comma 3. So it didn't do what I expected it to do, but that's normal, right? So you play around with these inputs and you see what you get. I can change my D type as it said to numpy dot int 8 or something like that. I didn't understand this. So I want to also show you that I'm reading something like type error, data type, numpy dot int 8 was not understood. So then I go back to this thing, I read it once again, and I realize that, oh, it's not so straightforward. It isn't what I expected to sort of be. Float 64 also is not working. Maybe float 64 works, right? So float 64 worked, or int 8 works, right? So this is integers. The other one was floating point numbers, that is the numbers with points. But what I want you to know is that even after you've had a lot of experience with Python, you're not expected to remember every single thing of every single function. You're just expected to figure out what you want and then play around only with those things. And when you need to know something else, you sort of go and you check it out. So one other example that I want to do really quickly is the sum function. So over here, it gives you the sum of the entire array. But I want to only say calculate the sum of the rows or the sum of the columns. So then I open the help once again. The way you do this is shift and tab, and I see access, dtype, out, and keep dimensions. I realize that this is probably going to be access because this is access 0 and access 1 is often used in programming parlance. So I'll just play around with it. I'll just say it's access equals say 1. And you kind of need to have some experience about this. So I know sort of how Python works. And I played around with access and I said access is equal to 1. And I sort of get what I want, right? So I can verify it in this array, and see that 0.14 plus, let me just quickly check that. Right, so I have this row, this list, and I once again take numpy of array of this whole thing, and I take the sum. Oops. So I read attribute error, numpy has no attribute arry, and then I realize, oh, it's array, right? So I get 2.312609. So yeah, this is doing what I'm expecting it to do. It's calculating the sum of this row and then the sum of this row, the sum of this row. Let's verify for another number. And that just works fine. So you're not expected to know everything, basically. Now we have a few quick exercises. I've created something called linspace. So you may not know what linspace is, but again, you can sort of try guessing. You can open it on Google. Another thing you can, it's not Google, but you can search it on Google. And the first thing you often get is the user manual. And the user manual gives you basically this help page that I was opening up over there. But here you read something like this. So you say returns evenly spaced numbers over a specified interval, which means that it gives you back evenly spaced numbers over some specified interval. And start is my first thing, stop is the second thing, and this is the number, right? So if you are giving numbers between a starting point and an ending point, you also need to know how many numbers to give you, right? And you can sort of see that this is the starting value of the sequence, stopping value of the sequence, and num. And this is all that we sort of want right now. So that's all that I'm going to see for now and just leave the rest over there. And so this should give me 100 numbers equally spaced between 0 and 10. And if I actually check it, and this is how you check it, you see numbers between 0 and 10. And this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this looks approximately like 20. So I think that 20. So totally 100, right? So it's important in something like Python because there's just so many functions and so many nuances that you don't remember everything. You actually just remember what you need to. You don't force your memory to sort of just have too many things. Now I want you to calculate y with this formula, calculate y using this formula, but only for the first 10 elements. So use the indexing that we mentioned above. Now I've defined 100 equally spaced points and random points, add both of them together and save them in C. Um, and yeah, calculate the sum of X and Y and Z and tell me which one is the largest. So you have X, Y, and Z. Calculate the sum of all the variables in X, all the variables in Y, and all the variables in Z, and let me know which one is the largest. I expect you to use this sum over here. So you guys can start now. I'll be looking for comments in the chat section. So please send your comments over there.
If there are any questions from participants, if you want us to pause a little bit, do let us know. You can even unmute yourself and speak. You can raise your hand, and if you're unable to unmute, we'll do it for you. Otherwise, we'll continue with the next one, Matplotlib, plotting using Python.
Before we start Matplotlib, let's wait for some more time because I put some exercises at the end of the first video.
Yeah, we are waiting for them to respond. Try them out and then we will start later. Just we'll give you a few minutes break. Keep trying.
Yeah, and if some of you have finished the exercises, also please mention it in the group so that we know how long it's taking you.
There's a question. Uh, Avid Das Gupta asks, can you show how to access the help option in IPNB again?
So the help option comes with Shift and Tab. So just a quick shortcut. I know it works in the Mac. I hope it also works in Windows. Mac Chrome it works. So Danisha,
Please share this.
share the screen. I'm sharing the screen, but you get screen of the exercise. So I'm sharing those screens exactly right now. Um, yeah, but you should have it because we've given you the IPython notebook. Great. So Shift and Tab also works in Windows. If anyone else missed it, the help. You can also ask general questions about NumPy or arrays or lists or anything else. So Anshul K asks, does the value of the original array change when we perform, say, multiplication on that array? So Anshul, the answer is no, but it's a good question because sometimes these operations actually change the value, the original value. And if you are ever confused, the best thing to do is to actually just check it for yourself. So I did x plus 1 and then I put x once again and my original x was um, 0, 0.1, and then it's still 0 and 0.1. So instead of remembering too much of stuff, I would say it's best to keep verifying because it's not that easy and it's not very consistent across the language.
As we had mentioned yesterday, those who are absolutely new to Python, don't worry. If you are unable to cope up, we can have special sessions for you on other days than the weekends. So once these Telegram groups are done, we'll break up into smaller groups and have other sessions on other days convenient to most participants, right? But we have to proceed ahead. That's why uh, we are going with this NumPy. Then we'll have Matplotlib. Next week we'll have Pandas, and then we will do AstroPy. Okay, so those who are unable to cope up, don't worry. You'll have to work a little bit at home, and we'll make smaller groups and attend to your issues separately.
So Avik Dasgupta looks like he's completed it. Mritika almost finished it. Payal Roy is asking about the Telegram group. I don't know about the Telegram group. I think that Dr. Hassan take it. Oh, Kashibul says that it has been created.
The Telegram group has been created and the links have been sent to you. So better join them.
So those of you who have completed it, play around a little more with NumPy, look at things that you're curious about. These are And also look at, I mean, see if you have other questions. Take a look at the cheat sheet.
Uh, there is a question from Avik. Z has the highest sum in the last exercise. Is that right?
I mean, that's the final answer, right? If I give that, other people will also know. It's not a coding related issue, but he's right. Which is the Mritika, your question is incomplete. Senthil Kumar needs the link to the exercise. Senthil, even if you missed everything leading up to this, you can just see the exercise over here on my screen. Mritika also did not receive the invitation mail. X is equal to 500. Sindhuji is, I think, telling me what the sum of x's are. Is it 500? It is 500. Okay, so we will sort it out. We will send you guys the invitation links once again. Yep, Sindhuji, it is correct. I've verified it myself over here.
Here's the link for Telegraph. It has been posted here.
So that we can do some plotting today, I want to finish this exercise. So let me show you guys the answer. So Mrinalini, what's your, can you give me your code? I'll sort it out. So here are the answers, guys. This is the answer to the first question. All, so I'm just saying that y is equal to 7x plus 2, and I'm checking the first and last one. The first x element was 0, so that becomes 2, and the last one was 10, and that becomes 70 because 7 times 10 plus 2 is 72. This next thing, I just take the first 10 elements using my indexing. So I have x 0 to 10, and then so that's my new array. I'm calling it first 10 for whatever reason. I'm saying y is equal to first 10 stars are 2, and if I take a quick look at y, I get um, 0, 0.01, 0.04, 0.08, which looks approximately like what the square of the first few elements will look like. I can verify it myself if I want to. The way I would do that is say take the third element. This is the third element, multiply it by itself, and I get 0.048. So it's doing what I wanted to do. Next thing, define all of these things and then add another 100 random points, add them together. I've actually defined it for you over here. All that I have to do is save it in Z as follows. Oops. So it says value error, operands could not broadcast together shapes with this and this. But that's because my new Y has only 10 elements in it, right? So I'm reading this error and I'm trying to understand what it's saying, and it says that this thing only has 10 elements in it. So I should maybe call this something else. I'll call this Y out or something like that, and go back to this. Um, Sorry, go back to this one. Right, so now my Y again has, oops, so sorry. I should call this my Y out. So my Z actually has those variables in it. The way I look at the sum is I can print x dot sum, print, um, question is which Y. I didn't mention that. I'm just going to say Y out dot sum because that should be from the previous exercise, and print Z dot sum, and this 500, 548, and 48.23. The thing is that these are so we've generated random numbers, so you're going to have different numbers from me. Don't get too worried about it. This should be approximately 550. This should be approximately 50, and that's that. So these answers we'll give to you. If anyone has any questions, we can answer them now. Mrunalini, can you give me your code so that I can check what syntax error you're having? Syntax error means something like this, right? So instead of saying 7 star x plus 2, if I would have just said something like this, it says syntax error because 7x does not mean anything. I have to say 7 star x because I take 7 and I multiply it by x. 7x is a shorthand way of writing this. And that's what syntax error means. And there's something wrong in the way you've written your code. All right. I Please comment if you don't want us to proceed right now. If enough people don't want that, then we will spend some more time over here. But if you guys are comfortable with this, then we can proceed. The next video is going to be about how do you actually plot something like this, right? Because we have this, but what is this? Like how what's happening? I don't really know. It would be nice to be able to actually visualize it. So how do you make plots in Python? That's the question.
I think let's start with the next one, matplotlib, and others can try it later and get back to us with problems. So now we'll go for the next video.
Mm, Mritika, this is 100 equally spaced points, np.lenspace 0 to 10, 100. I've already done it for you.
You just changed the Y output, right?
No, no, no. I mean, this is the 100 equally spaced points. So
Yes.
if
There was some error, right? That's what I'm asking.
this
Okay.
error over here, why did I change y out?
Mm-hmm.
I can so the reason I changed y out was because it was getting confused between this y and this y. I
Mm-hmm.
actually just didn't run this box. I can leave this as y and then run both these boxes and it runs fine. But because I ran this box first and then I ran this box, it it got
Because
confused.
the same error was showing in my computer, so I thought I need to clarify it. Okay, I got it.
So
Thank you.
what it says, so I mean, and this is an example for a lot of, this is not just me. This is while coding, you see something like value error. Operands could not be broadcast together with shapes 100, comma and 10, comma. Now, you needn't actually understand exactly what it's telling you. As as you spend more time together, you'll actually figure out what it means by broadcast and operands. These are all technical terms, but you still can try deciphering what it's saying because you see the word shapes. It's like listening to a language where you barely know what the other people are, what the language is, and you just say that, oh, this is shapes. I see shapes. There's something wrong with the shapes, and then you're like, oh, X. There's a shape of 100 and a shape of a 10. The shape of a 10 probably came from here, which is why there was a problem. So I fix it. I fix it by defining y out, but you can fix it in any way. But that was only so that people could run any block that they want without a real conflict. But yeah, that was it. Great. I think we can continue to the next video.
Yeah, I'll run this next one.
Yeah. Hi everyone. I'm going to show you the basic interface that is used for matplotlib, which is the Python library that is used for plotting anything. There are other ones too, which you might use and find online. If you find those more useful, please use those. But most plotting in Python takes place using matplotlib, right? So now to share my screen. So here's our Jupyter notebook. We are going to use, we are going to import it using this line saying that import matplotlib with pyplot as plt. So whenever we use this package, we're going to say plt dot something. I'm going to import numpy as np. X is equal to, so we need to plot something, right? So I'm going to make linearly separated points between 0 and 10, 100 of them. And I'm going to make a new variable called y, which is np.exponent of x, and I'm going to just plot this. And as expected, this is the most basic graph. This is with the most basic functionality. Um, Let me run this code along with you guys so that you see this happen in real time. The most basic graph, almost nothing to it, but you have what you need. The first exercise for you, please pause the video at this point, is to make a similar graph where you use a NumPy cheat sheet. In fact, you needn't even use a cheat sheet. This is pretty straightforward. And just write the same sort of a thing over here. I hope this is pretty straightforward. And once you're done with that, we can move on to the next part. So in the previous exercise, I actually gave you the answer. So it is right. So please just use that and plot it.
I have paused the video for participants to run it. In a while, I'll start it again. Guess you must have done it by now, so we'll proceed ahead.
Just give them 2 more minutes. Do they have the file?
The files have been uploaded, and probably they have downloaded those files.
Let's just wait for 2 people to comment on the group chat saying that they're done with it.
Okay, fine. Yeah. So let 1 or 2 respond that it's done, and then we will proceed.
So one person's done.
Yeah, Rohit has done, and Sushil has also done. So we'll proceed ahead.
I hope you're done with that now. Or at the end of the video, whenever you choose to do it. But I define y1 as np.cos. So this is just the cosine functions. Y2 as sine. You can always see these using either the print statement or just by writing it down. These are 100 data points of cos, right? You can plot the cos and sine function together in one graph using just by putting both of them together. One neat trick in Python that I've noticed and realized is that you can change the style by changing the default style. It has a few inbuilt default styles, but the one that I find I like is ggplot. So I just say plt.style.use ggplot. You can play around with this, maybe see different styles within this function, and see if you like something else more, you can use that if you do. So this gives us this graph, which is your sine and your cos. But as you can see, this has got nothing to it. This is just 2 lines and you are, I mean, this is unpublishable. You can't use this in any communication with any human being. So you're going to have to beautify it and so on and so forth. And I want to just give you a sense of how you can beautify it and how you can make it look better. Um, Feel free to change this code if you ever use this in real life. But you are going to have to poke around a little bit yourself, because there's no way I can talk about every single thing that someone does. So I plotted the same sine and cos. So y1 was my cosine. So by putting marker O, I made these circles. By saying line style is equal to none, I removed the line that was connecting it. So I plotted x and y, put the markers this, remove the line style, and put a label to it. And this label is finally going to give you this thing down. Similarly, you can plot the other thing. This time I changed, I didn't specify a marker, so there's no marker. It's just a line style of double dash. Double dash stands for like a dashed line. Label is sine. I'm going to just put a title of plt.title, sine and cos, plt.x label. I mean, I'm just putting this thing over here. Input in radians, the value. I just called it the value, right? So I specified each of these things. And to actually get cosine and sine over here, you have to say plt.legend and it creates it for you. So most basic graphing should be handled using just this interface. This has been pretty useful for me. And for most quick graphs, I just do this. However, if you ever feel the need to do something more complex, you can play around with this. And I've also given you a few cheat sheets. Um, these cheat sheets are basically shortcuts and things that you can do to make it look a little better. It talks about the different plots that are there in it, and you can take time to go through this thing. Or you can just search on Google and find something on Stack Overflow. It's the website with question and answers. The thing about graphing is that there are a lot of similar patterns. Most people want similar graphs. So most probably someone would have asked what you're looking for. And it often you can get what you want by changing what's inside the plt.plot over here, or changing it using these things. One thing so this is going to be a basic plotting. This is going to help you through most of your career, I think. But obviously, things can get more advanced. I've I've given you guys a lot of cheat sheets. Please feel free to download them and play around with them. It's way beyond the scope of a small course like this. Um, and I think the way I have learned it, and it might be the same for you guys, just find what you need for the graph that you're trying to make and try remembering how you did it. And over time, you will just build, you'll get a sense of what are the important ones for you and for your kind of work. So as another quick test, I've asked you to create two functions. I'm just asking you to do basic modifications. So F1 should be dashed the same way as this. I want you to look at the cheat sheet, the one that I've given you, or you needn't actually look at the cheat sheet. You can play around with this. So similarly to line style, I want you to define something called line width. So this made it thicker, but you can't see it. So now this is a lot thicker. But I want you to basically create this line width sort of a thing, increase the thickness of your width of F2. So make the line width thicker and just label nicely. So say what F1 is, say what F2 is, put whatever you want in your labels. create a nice title. I don't know what you're going to title it. Do something that makes sense to you. I'm not sure if you remember, if you recognize this functional form, but it actually is another function which is pretty easy, pretty neat, and label nicely. Just play around. Just, I don't know, figure it out. If you want to create a new figure, often you can, and this thing, for example, we've created both of them together in the same figure. Sometimes you might want to create a new figure, so you just use plt.figure, and that just works. So this creates one figure over here, this another figure over here. I haven't labeled this, but feel free to label it if you want. Now, this is where matplotlib often gets confusing, and a lot of people get confused. I was confused about this for a long time. The fact, basically, matplotlib has two different ways of plotting, and
There's a request to pause the video. We'll, yeah, we'll pause and we'll.
okay, so please try doing the second exercise now and ask questions. And also, when people finish it, the first, second, third people, I mean, whenever you finish it, please say done the way you did for the previous exercise so that we know when to continue. For those of you who can't finish it, um, just finish it after the lecture. So Geetanjali is done. Yes, it is done. I think I'll give you guys something like 2-3 minutes more to play around with the labeling to make change the X labels, Y labels, to look at different markers, because even the ones that are done can spend some more time um, changing their graph and personalizing it in some way. So just go beyond what I've asked you. I've asked you the basic bare minimum. I think a lot of people have finished it, so we'll wait for like another minute and then we'll continue. Okay, let's continue. Both of them have their own advantages and both of them are extremely similar. So
A little bit
just
that
pick one of them, rewind it by like something like 20 seconds. and just learn how the other one sort of operates. You'll basically pick both of these skills over time, and it's very subtle, the differences, and it's important to know that these two things are slightly different so that you don't get confused between the two. So over here we've plotted everything using plt.plot, right? But what you can do is create an object using something called plt.subplots. It gives you a figure and an axis. So it's basically almost like, so it basically creates an empty plot and it gives you these two things. Now this axis object is what people modify, and the modification gives you your graph. So this is one example of that. So I'm going to plot the same thing, y1. Um, oops. So I plt.plot of this, then I create a legend. Notice that the difference, that it's slightly different. I think I could have put label over here, but I specified labels over here so that you can get a difference in, you get like a different sense of what's happening. So instead of having separate labels for each of these plots, you can also put the labels over here. These are really specific things, but basically the reason I made it different over here is just so that you get a sense of the fact that it can be different and you don't get overwhelmed when you see something like this. So another thing that I want you to do, and you'll do this automatically during your growth as a programmer, as a coder, is to try and guess what certain things mean. So I see a code like this, and I see loc is equal to lower right. Now loc might be location, right? My first guess is location, and lower right is probably on the bottom right. And I look at my legend and I see that it's actually in the bottom right. So I conclude that legend is being placed at the lower right, which is why I've just commented that over there. And remember that loc inside the legend puts it in the lower right. Now this is something that's so specific that you may not remember it, but it's useful to know that such things exist, because sometimes your graph looks great, everything's amazing except for the fact that your legend is in the wrong place. And you can go in circles and spend a lot of time figuring out how to change the legend. And it's normal. This happens to everyone. It happens to a lot of people it's not just me, right? I might not know it well enough, but it happens to everyone because it's kind of just all over the place. Um, Now, notice the difference between the original PLT is that in PLT you'd say PLT dot title is cosine function, but over here I'd say AX dot set title, so it's different, right? Um, Similarly, in the PLT thing, you say PLT dot X label. Here you say AX dot set X label. Right, so it gets confusing. It was confusing for me because ax dot label doesn't work, and ax when it's created from plt dot subplots is different from the module object plt. So keep that in mind whenever you're coding. And then you'd say plt dot show. This is plt dot show is actually not that important. It just automatically does it in matplotlib. This is more important if you're using something like Spider. I just put it in so that if someone ever uses Spider or something, you might not get your graph. The reason you're not getting your graph is that you have to do plt.show. Now, why? I mean, if PLT works perfectly, why does someone ever use subplots to create a graph? And the reason is because subplots basically gives you um, such a figure. It gives you a figure with, say, 4 graphs. So I've created a subplot of 2 comma 2, which means 2 cross 2. What I do with my first, so I index these similar to a NumPy array. So this would be 0, 0, 0, 1. 1 0 1 1. And for each of these, I use a similar interface to create my graphs. And it's important to control where exactly it's getting created. So this is how it gets created. What PLT basically does is it actually takes the last AX object and it just changes that. So it keeps track of what is the last one. So one demonstration of that, right, is I did a similar thing underneath over here where I define subplots 2 comma 2 and I make my 4 plots, right? So I'm not sure if maybe I should just go over all of them once. So x, y, we had defined y earlier as the exponent. So it creates the exponent. X, y1, um, you create a sign in the 1 comma 1 thing, which is right. Y1 was sine, y2 was cos. And I just created another one over here to show that you don't have to create a separate variable every time you're making a plot. I just said x star star 2, which is x squared, and it just plots x squared for the values between 0 and 10. So 10 squared is 100, and 0 squared is 0. Right? So these are your 4 graphs with their own legends and so on. I just wanted to show that plt.legend in the end doesn't really give you the legend that you'd want. It creates only the legend for the last one. So as a quick exercise, this is the last exercise for the NumPy video. If you haven't seen that video, then it's okay because this says everything that you have to do. Basically, create 100 equally spaced. Can you pause it? So there's a basic difference between I'm just sharing my screen once again, between the two different ways of accessing this graph, right? So what you do in PLT is where you take your original module itself, the way we did in NumPy, you take that and you change various things within PLT. But another way of doing it is where you actually define plt.subplots and you get it in this figure and axis thing. So this AX is is another object which is created within Python. It's an object is something like a NumPy array, but this is different. This is called an axis object. If you are ever confused about these sort of things, you can actually just ask what it is by using the type once again. So it says matplotlib.axis.subplots axis subplot. So it's called an axis object. That is how you just converse in this language. So fig is another thing that we created. It's matplotlib.figure.figure. It's so this is within matplotlib, the library. There's an object called figure, and within the object called figure, there's another object called figure. It's a little strange. I mean, it's just something you'll get used to over time. Even if I import a NumPy array, np, and I create, say, an array really quick, then it says numpy.nd array. So they don't just call it an nd array, but numpy an n-dimensional array. Basically, that's what it means. So I hope that's a little more clearer. So now we are changing the AX object. We're not changing the PLT. We're not looking at the properties of PLT. We're looking at the properties and functions within AX, right? So the exercise, I'll say it instead of the video now that I'm here. Let me just start my video. Yeah. So basically, we already defined these x and y's in the previous lecture, right? So we already have these 100 equally spaced points and then 100 random points. We have this. I'll For the people who did not work it out, let me just give you guys the So z is equal to x plus y. And now we're just trying to visualize the the z. So I want you to use the two different ways of visualizing it. One way is to just directly use PLT, and the other way is to use PLT dot subplots. So if you have the Jupyter notebook, it should be pretty straightforward. We'll wait for something like 3-4 minutes, maybe. I mean, so that we can end on time as well. But hopefully, you should have all the piece of puzzle. This is just a very quick check to see if you've if you've got it for yourself. And feel free to ask any questions. I have finished the video. There's no more content in the video. There's nothing to continue. So I'm just hoping that people finish this. Subhashish has already finished it. Payal has already finished it. There's nothing in the end. I just explained the exercise. There's nothing to finish in the video. Abora is also done. Add some noise to it by adding 100 random points. Add x and y together, which x is the first one and y is the second one. So plot and save in Z, and then plot X and Z and stylize. So as an exercise, as a challenge, and I'm not sure if we can do this in just the workshop, you can just plot the basic interface, which is using this plt.plot sort of stuff, and then do another one using plt.subplots because you might find that useful. And you might also just come across a lot of Stack Overflow and Google based help that uses subplots because some people just prefer subplots and stick to subplots all the time. I just know both because I've just spent more time in Python and I'm kind of comfortable with the language. But it was very confusing because the AX object is different from the PLT object. And the things that you do with the axes, AX is the axes object, is that you set title, you set X label, you set and you change these things using these set functions. This is an artifact of object-oriented programming. It's because, I mean, that's beyond the scope of this video. But basically, in object-oriented programming, you use set functions to change the internal values of variables, and that's what you do in this thing. So I hope you find this not too complicated and quite straightforward and helpful. Thank you. So we are nearing the end of the video. The thing about a language, a programming language, especially the modern ones, is that you can't teach the entire language. It's ridiculous to even expect to know every single thing in the language. Just like a normal language, say English, you don't really know the meaning of every single word in the language, and yet you get by. So that is what you have to sort of, that's how I have dealt with the way I have learned coding, and that's how you guys can deal with it as well. Um, Quite often, I just ask my question through regular search in Google. I try to make it as abstract as possible. So instead of putting in specific things like adding up to 100, I'd be like adding numbers together in Python in a certain sequence. Or I try around different things and see what I get. Quite often, you'll come across a website called Stack Overflow. Stack Overflow often just has bits of code. What you can do is copy paste this code, and all you have to do is write a lot of print statements and see what's happening. Write a lot of type statements so that you know what the internal type is, and just track how that variable sort of changes and evolves. And that should be enough for most purposes. Don't feel bad about copy pasting code. It's very normal. Everyone does it, and it's not even something that you should think of as bad or sloppy in any way. Make an effort to understand what's going on, because if you understand it, you can understand that in the future as well. And when you have an error in Python, when you have assertion error, syntax error, try deciphering what it's saying, because that often has clues into what's going wrong, right? Or you can even just search that error and see what happens in Google. It might give you more clues as to what's going wrong. So yeah, I'm done with today's video.
There is a question, Ishan, from Justin. To sort out elements within the list using for loops, and list had lines of paragraphs, and we need to print word in separate manners. How do we do using nested loops? Any way in which?
I'm not too sure what you mean, but I wanted to show you in NumPy how you can access every element of uh, a loop. You can, where is it? I say for I and column, right? For I and row. So this is how you access every single element of it. If your question is how do you sort a certain array, let me just create a random array really quick. np.random.random, and I think it was called the size is equal to 100. So now I've got a random array with 100 elements in it. And as you can see, it is not sorted. So I just say dot sort, and where did it go?
So you are not sharing your screen.
Oh, thank you.
Anything.
So, I mean, this is how you can go through every single element of your array. You just say for row and random array, for I and row, you print that thing. And if your question was how do you sort something, you just have an inbuilt function called sort. And um, like the question someone else had asked earlier, I think this sorts it internally, then doesn't return anything. So you don't need to say random array is equal to random array dot sort. And another example of how this is like a slightly strange thing, it's not something that you'd memorize. I just realized that it didn't give me an output. So I was like, must have changed something inside it. And then when I go check inside it, sure enough, I have a sorted array. I hope that answers your question. If it doesn't, please rephrase it. And I think we're close to the end right now. I can't see any more questions. Oh, can you kindly share the second cheat sheet? Yes, I'll share the cheat sheets. In fact, there are lots of cheat sheets with NumPy because with Matplotlib because graphing is quite extensive. There's a lot of things that you can do with graphing. You can make something transparent. You can put a border. You can use crosses and O's and so on.
Is it
Um,
is it possible to make some 3D graphs or something?
yeah. I mean, normal 3D graphs are often called just contour plots. So you can often use those. And I mean, I'm sorry I couldn't cover it today, but basically, um, find it online. I think it's called contour f of I need something to plot, right? So I'll just take a random array. We are already past time. So I'll just leave it at that for now. But always, I mean, just Google something like this and you'd find it. You don't need to remember each of these things.
Okay, let's stop with this session for today. And let me remind you that we have Mark Taylor on Saturday. So please try Topcat. So play around with Topcat, which we discussed yesterday. And we'll have a session on Saturday with Mark Taylor on Topcat. It'll be an advanced one, so you have to know the basics which we discussed yesterday. We'll be continuing with Python for next two Sundays, the coming one and the one following. But we'll have Kastub from Pune. He'll be talking on AstroPy and Python. And we'll have special sessions for Python for those who are novices during the week. So let's end for today. Thanks for being with us and continue this Python exercises as well as the other things which we have been discussing. Bye-bye.